Hi, thank you for joining us today. With us is Tom DeWitt, the Director of CXM at MSU at Michigan State University. Hi, how are you doing today, Tom?
I'm great, thanks.
Well,
Thanks
thank you
for
so
having
much.
me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. We'll just dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your path to founding the first customer experience management master's degree program in all of North America.
All right. Well, I don't know how much time you and your listeners have. I'll try to keep it short. Um, I, I'm a graduate of Michigan State. I'm an alumni. I left, believe it or not, Hawaii to join the faculty at Michigan State in 2018. And it was during the interview process that they were working on an initiative around customer experience management and asked if I was interested. And I said, absolutely. I spent my career in the hospitality industry, did research and services marketing, had a small boutique consulting practice and what I call brand experience management back then. And when I joined MSU, I came to find out that the marketing department had received some funding from Michigan State University Federal Credit Union to help promote the industry around customer experience in Michigan. And I volunteered to lead it. And I had some ideas in mind, which really started with community building. I love bringing industry people together. So that was the initial thing I did, was organized a conference around in customer experience management and created this title. You'll notice too, we don't call it CX. One of the reasons why CX has such a high failure rate is because it's often not a managed process in an organization. And that's our tagline, is putting management into customer experience. So you'll notice it's CXM at MSU. So we had our first conference in the spring of 2019, and it was in collecting that audience and looking at people's profiles that I came to realize the skills gap that existed in the industry. If you look at people in leadership roles and you track their path, and you'll see things, well, maybe they were head of the contact center, they worked in insights. And next thing you know, they're the manager, director, vice president of CX. So in those roles, we found a scarcity of skills. And then what industry people were telling me is the industry is fragmented. I heard that a lot. When I dug a little deeper, I found it was fragmented not just in terms of individual skill sets, but also how they interpreted CX or customer experience across the organization, and how they made it or didn't make it a managed process across the organization. So what we set out to do is to create a framework to address that, and to really help formalize the industry by creating an academic program. And the reason we chose a master's degree and an online program at that was we needed to meet industry leaders where they are right now. It wouldn't serve industry to create an undergraduate program right now, or even a full-time master's program, but better to meet leaders and address that skills gap where it exists, whether you're already in a senior leadership position or not, which is why in the spring of 2019 at their first conference, I made the announcement that we were going to create a master's degree program in customer experience management, not knowing what that took, which is probably a good thing, because had I known, maybe I wouldn't have done it. It took 3 years to get it done. It was approved in May of 2022. We had our first intake or cohort of students in August. I think we had 19 students in that cohort. I ended up with 18, may have had one person that dropped. And since then, we've had 2 other intakes. So now we have over 50 students in the program. Yeah, it's really exciting. They're from all across the U.S., and we also have a student from Vietnam in the program. And it boasts 87% of our faculty are in industry. They're leaders in industry. There's 15 courses in the degree. It's 15 5-week courses taken one after the other over 20 months. And the composition of the students, we have, I believe, 6 vice presidents of CX or above. We have people that are just joining the industry. You know, maybe they work in customer service or sales and they're using it as a springboard into a new career. But the majority of our students are what I would consider specialists. They're working in specific roles in CX right now, like a CX journey leader or a UX designer or someone in insight. So specialty role in a position, you know, the curriculum allows them to develop outside of that role and take on a broader leadership position. So that's how we've gotten where we are. And now we have plans for global expansion, beginning with Asia and the Middle East beginning next year.
That's awesome. It's going so well. You're going to other continents. That's great. And I'm glad you're spreading the knowledge. You said it was a 15 class courses.
15 courses.
Over a 5-week span each. Why don't we dive a little bit into that? You know, how do you teach it? You said it's online. What specific courses? I'd love to just learn more about that.
Yeah. So, I tried to take a logical approach in putting the curriculum together. It was kind of like if you had to start from day one, what would you do? You know, in an organization, and then step by step. And it started with a course around what it means to be a customer-centric organization, and how is customer experience management a natural extension of that. You know, you and I know one of the reasons why CX initiatives fail so much is organizations try to jury rig it on an existing culture and an existing organizational structure. And it just doesn't work. You know, it's an added department, or it doesn't get doesn't get a seat in the C-suite, and it fails miserably. And it's because, you know, it needs to be, you know, and when we say the customer needs to be at the center of everything we do, very rarely do organizations follow through on that. You know, how do you measure success in your organization? Is it purely based on profit goals, or is customer satisfaction goals up there? There's a lot of things that go on in an organization that reflect customer centricity. So our first course covers that. Our second course covers change management, because the reality is most organizations don't have that luxury. So you need to change. So it's a systems approach to organizational change to move to a customer-centric model. And after that, we get into with a heavy focus on qualitative research techniques to understand behind the quantitative data. Qualitative data analytics, from jobs to be done to empathy mapping, customer personas, diagnostic journey mapping, experience analytics to isolate where problems come from, internal, you know, process engineering. Then we get into, let me think here. I gotta. then we get into design, including, you know, creating a culture that supports human-centered design and innovation, experience design principles, UX design, experience strategy, where you're aligning business goals with customer experience goals. And let's see. Oh man, kind of caught me off base here. Then following all that, understanding the customer, then designing, and then employees. You know, CX initiatives fail largely from a lack of leadership alignment, which I've already kind of mentioned, and a lack of employee engagement. And that's something that's not talked about enough. You know, I'm so tired of hearing about AI. You know, AI is not going to address every need that human beings have. And ultimately, it's employees that are delivering on the experience. And it's highly engaged employees that are delivering the best experiences. But most leaders don't know even what that means, let alone how to manage it. So we have separate courses on employee experience and employee engagement. We also have courses in customer relationship management. When you look at the life cycle of a customer, most organizations lose interest once they get to the purchase phase. You know, it just turns into the contact center and responding to problems instead of understanding how is loyalty created. How do you manage that over time? How do you make people feel appreciated and valued? And how do you respond effectively when they do have problems to maintain the relationship and cultivate feedback and incorporate that into your product innovation? And then lastly, we look at and one of our students noted this on LinkedIn. He says, I'm halfway through the program and we haven't even talked about NPS yet. We've just started creating and managing the experience, right? Where everybody else is all NPS, and it just blinds leaders, And my response was, don't worry, we'll get that to that in course number 14 out of 15. You will have learned everything you need to understand about what you're measuring and why you're measuring it. So measuring the experience, and then lastly, it's data integration, analysis, and visualization, and learning about where you share information, and not just in the organization, but outside the organization, data to relevant parties. So those are all 15 degrees. The most comprehensive. It's not just the comprehensive nature, but the depth at every course. It's 5 weeks of 2-hour synchronous class sessions, team-based learnings. Students have come to class having watched videos of their instructors and other people, done readings, done individual exercises, a lot which are reflective on their own organization so they can apply it. And then in class, I've never heard so many compliments about working on case studies, but our case studies are brief. They're created by organizations we partner with. They reflect reality, and they allow students to apply the principles they've learned in the videos and readings to a real-world setting with the company representative there to provide feedback. So that's how we do it. And so our instructors are all across the U.S. from coast to coast, as are our students. And then we have students, as I mentioned, from Vietnam and Puerto Rico. So
that's awesome. You're expanding.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating how people are able to work in their professional careers while gaining this degree. I know that's a big thing with MBA programs, right?
Yeah, I think what helps is, and when we designed it, we wanted it to be manageable. I wanted, in my mind, I kept thinking easy to digest.
Mm-hmm.
So you're only taking one class at a time. It is very intense. Don't get me wrong. There's work there every week. You got to put in your time doing the reading and the exercise, but you only need to focus on one course. Mm-hmm. And then we work really, every instructor works with an instructional designer for 3 months in designing the course. We make sure that we're consistent with due dates so that students aren't taken off guard when they move. It's the change in personalities is enough, from one instructor to the other. You don't want to say, well, now the learning management system interface looks so totally different, and this assignment's due, so things are.
You want a good experience, right? Yeah. You want your students to have a good student experience.
And it's not perfect, particularly when everybody's doing it for the first time. And I have to say, our first cohort is the tip of the sword, and they've been amazing. We've had a few issues because a lot of our instructors, being industry people, they're doing it for the first time, and they're learning too, and they're adapting the learning management system, but they do a really great job. But it's making sure, that individual assignment is due the night before class, not 2 nights before, and this is due, so we work with the instructors to make sure that is streamlined, and there's kind of a similar cadence and expectation so that students aren't taken off guard. But at the same time, there's tons of depth in terms of the material. We purposely have a different instructor for every course so we can have the best possible instructor for each course. And it also helps to facilitate expansion. I mentioned we're moving into Southeast Asia, we're moving into the Middle East. Those programs will be delivered in the evening in each one of those areas, which means that instructor needs to be available for those times, and if they're not, we find another instructor that's able to do that.
That's awesome. I'm going to shift gears a little bit because you've told us so much about the program. I heard a little bit on your intro about the community building you're doing, and that's one of the first things you did there. We're trying to build the community with all of these chats we do and the other stuff we do with our company. Why don't you tell us about what you're doing to grow that community and educate professionals that aren't in your program?
Yeah, absolutely. What I've heard a lot of over the years, when you talk to CX professionals about how they learn, it's amazing how many learn through conversations over the phone. Pre-COVID, and via Zoom, because they don't always find that support in their own organization. You know, if you have a small CX function, you're going to draw the most comfort and encouragement from your peers across the organizations. So recognizing that, you know, we moved to a model for conferences to bring people together physically, as well as virtually. When COVID hit, we had to pause our in-person conference. I think it was the spring of 2020, and then we responded by launching an online global conference in the fall of 2020, and we continued to do that during COVID. Now we continue to do that every spring and May with our global CXM 360. And 360 means we cover all the relevant aspects of CX. We don't gravitate to what's glowing hot that time of year, like AI. You know, we're constantly talking about the organization, the people, design, understanding the customer. And we also launched a series of online roundtables every month for 1 hour, where you can log in, you can learn something new, you can interact in breakouts with your peers from other organizations from around the world. And that's a model we're going to continue to duplicate globally. We have plans for a Vietnamese language roundtable in Vietnam. We're working there to help create the first CXM association, professionals association in Vietnam, an English language roundtable for Singapore and the UAE. And along with those programs, we plan to organize quarterly in-person events where people can get together in person. And that helps to support our master's programs there. But all along, the idea is to promote interaction across the organization so people can interact with and learn from their peers. And in fact, one thing we're doing differently with our conference this year is we're having all the attendees to identify their most significant customer experience management challenges prior to the conference. We're going to capture that data, as will they personally. And then we're going to ask them to build their personal agenda for the conference in addressing those challenges. So if you listed 6 challenges, look across the agenda, which of these sessions is going to help you, and attend them. And then at the end of the day, for each day of the conference, we're going to have strategy sessions to develop an action plan using that information. So take what you've learned today. What were your key learnings? And then what are your objectives in addressing your challenge? What strategies will you use taking what you've learned today, so that when you walk away from a conference, you've actually started an action plan? Because one of the most frustrating things about conferences is you go, oh man, that was so cool. That was so cool. You took a few notes, right, on that free paper they give you with the pen. You put it in your backpack and you never think about it again, right? So what we'll do, we book tables at the conference for companies. And then we usually get about 50% participation from companies buying tables and 50% individuals. When we do those strategy sessions, companies will be able to sit together so they can talk about their organization's challenges and work on those collectively. And then others will be able to gravitate to tables. We're going to organize tables according to challenge categories so that individuals can focus on the things that hold the greatest challenges for them.
I love that. I love how you're actually getting something out of it. Like, I have action items to do's out of the conference. I think that's fantastic.
Yep.
You mentioned that conference kind of helps people focus on their specific strategy for CX. If you were, in a different chair, had a different suit on, and you were running a CX department at a company, what would your theoretical strategy be right now?
The biggest challenge I see in the industry right now is aligning CX goals and KPIs with those of the organization. What we're seeing right now across the board is a lot of reorganization and cost cutting that's impacting CX operations. It's getting a seat at the table in the C-suite, And I know we talk about this a lot, getting people to collaborate, collaborate across departments and helping to achieve CX goals. But to me, the number one priority, and it continues to be, is demonstrating the ROI of CX.
Mm-hmm.
The more we can get leadership buy-in at the corporate level around CX goals and to creating an understanding of how the outcomes of CX goals are linked to business goals and can be linked to financial objectives, the more sound and secure CX strategy is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love, we could talk all day about journey maps, how they help us to understand pain points and how we can focus and fix those. But if you're not able to illustrate the dollar value of that to senior leadership, then I think you're at risk of being eliminated or marginalized when things go bad. So, it's having a CXO in the C-suite, but also, working across aisles, getting buy-in, getting collaboration, creating an effective governance structure that has the buy-in of the leadership from each one of those areas so that it's not even a thought. We've been seeing, if you think about the service profit chain article, it came out in HBR in 1995, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
People have been trying to figure that out now for years, what that looks like. And I think it's helping everyone to understand what that means in practical terms, what employee engagement means. It's a multifaceted model. It's about people being fulfilled in their roles and developing in their roles and feeling as though their personal values align with those of the company. It's reflective in higher level of productivity and extra role behaviors that result in customer outcomes that bring money into the company. And I think it's creating that understanding and creating accountability at the managerial level. And, it's kind of I know I've gotten a little off track with the strategy.
It's all right. Keep going. I love it.
Yeah. Too many times employee engagement has been, that's an HR thing. Isn't that something we measure every year and we never do anything about? It's not. Employee engagement is a leadership responsibility. It's an outcome of effective leadership at the mid-management and upper management level. And managers should be held accountable, understanding that, it's outcomes of engagement, employee engagement, that lead to positive customer outcomes that lead to profitability.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm hearing you right, it'd be great to be able to measure your CX success with ROI, dollars in the bank. But other than that, you mentioned NPS is the second to last course you have. How else would you measure success?
Measurement is a multifaceted model, and NPS is only good if you know the drivers. In fact, I think overall NPS is just one measure of someone's long-term relationship. So, if you've been to a restaurant one time, are you really likely to, how confident are you in recommending that restaurant? But I can measure for your satisfaction for that visit. Loyalty is created via cumulative satisfactory visits, as well as other factors of of each experience that have an positive emotional impact on you. So it's being cognizant of that, and it's measuring all the data that reflects that, including reviews we leave online, any verbatims. It's capturing. More and more companies are capturing video feedback, because video feedback can capture emotions in people's voices. It can track our facial expressions. So getting to what you asked about, if we look at everything I'm not ready to throw NPS on the trash heap yet. I want people to understand, what are all the antecedents of that? Yep. What are all the predictors of it? Beginning with transaction satisfaction, the criteria. So if you go to, say, a Chili's restaurant, they're going to ask you like 5 or 6 questions at the end. The first one is generally your overall satisfaction. Then they do a deeper dive into, elements of the service, the food, the atmosphere. Those are all criteria that have been identified of the top predictors of transaction satisfaction. But then it's what is your over time, what is your overall satisfaction with the restaurant? And then how likely are you to recommend? Another thing that it gets talked about, but not a whole lot of companies measure it, is customer lifetime value. And that, that has so much value because it's a great way to frame your relationship with your customers. It gets people to think about how long they're with you, how often they transact with you, how those transactions change over time, how change in transactions are a function of loyalty. Because, when we're loyal, we get tunnel vision. Think about where you get your haircut. Do you really, every time you need a haircut, go out and shop around? Or you intend on finding a place that's going to do a great job, right?
Yeah.
We're generally monogamous in our relationships because it saves us time. It saves us energy. We want to find a great place. We want to find restaurants that we love. Variety seeking, some people are really into it. You could argue, well, don't people go to different restaurants? Sure they do. But I bet you they settle in on a group of 4 or 5 they go to a lot. And when we do, there's a few things that will happen. One, we get less sensitive to pricing because we're not as cognizant of other prices around us. But we're also building this new value equation. We're recognizing other benefits of that relationship that maybe we weren't aware of to begin with. It's a personal relationships we've created with people there. We get to know the food and everything else. And we're willing to pay more. It's buying more with the same organization, so I don't have to go seek out others. If everybody understands that in an organization, and then they understand how their role, even deep within the organization, ultimately impacts a customer, it makes them feel better about their job too. Because the research has shown, in general, the right kind of people, and we could talk about what the right kind of person is. Individuals who have a high level of customer centricity, they want to work for customer-centric organizations. They want to know how their job impacts the customer. And all this too speaks to the democratization of data in the organization. Data shouldn't just be something that is hoarded and used by upper management to make decisions. It's something that should be shared freely across the organization so all employees are aware of it. So I know we got a little bit off track, but I think the reality is that technology has changed data, right? More and more, it's about the customer and what their information they're leaving out. And at the same time, customers are better informed now than they ever were. I think they're more empowered. Because 20 years ago, when I started this in academia, word of mouth was very literally word of mouth, not anymore. And if you ask any audience, who do you put greatest trust in? An advertisement from a company or a review from a third party that you read online? They choose that any day.
Absolutely.
Or if I ask them, think about your favorite restaurant and what makes it that way. Now tell me about their advertising strategies. They don't advertise.
They have good food.
Because they don't. Right. Yeah, but still, this world we live in, and this is a crazy thing that's going on right now, is we have these very traditional silos, still have marketing. Maybe CX is a subset of that, but still holding on to the traditional model of marketing, and marketing as advertising. And that has to change. It's going to change. For me, the future of CX is reinventing and reimagining the marketing function in an organization. And at some point, I see marketing and operations merging, and that would be a perfect world.
Let's dive deeper on that. That's my next question. You teed me up perfectly. What is the future of CX?
I think we're at a crossroads right now where we need to be able to demonstrate our viability. There's a lot of CX functions that are collapsing, and I think it kind of gets back to what I talked about, the inability to demonstrate at the C-suite level the value of the CX function, and how CX goals align with business goals, and to be in that conversation at a regular level. At the same time, consumers are forcing organizations to evolve because they're forced to recognize how consumers are using online reviews and what they're finding online to inform their decisions as to what they buy and where they go. So to me, the future of CX does lie with reimagining and understanding what marketing really means. And my definition of marketing has always been providing solutions to people's problems. It's not promoting those solutions, it's providing the solutions. So then you said, well, then if that's marketing, how is that different than operations? And it's not. The two need to work hands in hand. If you look at brand alignment is a function of what expectations are you creating and where do those come from? And it's being able to deliver on that. And people are always going to be a part of that. So it's recruiting the right people. To what extent are they aligned with the organization's values? It's mission. How are they able to deliver on your mission, and how engaged are they with your vision, and how do you develop them over time? So it's kind of like a pyramid. In fact, if you go back and if you Google the services marketing triangle, that's exactly what it is. On one side, you've got what you're communicating, and then you have external marketing, you have internal marketing, which is how are you developing the brand internally in terms of, and also your people to deliver on what you're communicating. And then there's interactive marketing, which is actually the experience in delivering on that. And I see that coming to life, where it's at some point, marketing and operations will merge and they will become the experience, not just customer experience. Because you and I know employee experience is every bit a part of that. Think about how our attitudes towards our jobs and what we do change on a daily basis based on the environment that we work. And that's a reality in every organization. And some organizations do it well and some don't. So that's how I imagine the future for CX. But we've got to, we need to first help the traditional leaders of organizations to understand the value of what we do and break that mental mode of a very traditional operational model.
That makes so much sense. I could listen to you talk forever, but I know you got stuff to do. So I got a couple of questions for you. These are the softballs. I save them for the end. What else should we know about you? This is your floor. Let us know anything you want.
Sure. Yeah, the question I get, what's most unique about me is I've lived in 4 other countries, most Asian countries, and I've traveled to over 40 countries. And it's really out of curiosity. I'm really curious about how people live their lives in other countries. And as a marketer and a CX professional, I'm always intrigued how different markets respond to those needs. Really, when we think about ourselves as human needs and what our needs are on a daily basis, they're not that different, right? It's just how different cultures and different countries respond to those. And to me, to immerse myself in those cultures, as opposed to staying in the same culture where I grew up and lived, is so much more fun, So in my future, I'm going to live in multiple countries every year. My wife reminds me it's no fun to live out of a suitcase, so I got to be careful. But if I can say live in 2 different continents and have the ability to also get on planes and go visit other countries, that's really where I'm happy. And I think that's where CX has to go too. One of the things I promised to students we have in our programs is we're going to organize travel programs too, so that when we have conferences in other countries, we're going to put together a week-long program where you can travel there, you can be a part of that conference, but then we'll organize company visits, we'll organize consumer immersion visits. Like we're my wife and I were talking about we're going to be bringing some of our faculty to Vietnam in Singapore where they've never been before. And we're talking about where we want them to eat, where the locals eat. And it won't be McDonald's. And I said, no McDonald's, no Starbucks. We're going to eat in the local hawker centers or food courts. And then you begin to think, boy, that's going to be tough for them to see these foods they've never seen before and ordering systems. But that's how you grow, right? In fact, when students ask me about study abroad, I said, go to somewhere where you feel the most foreign. It's just going to come at you in so many different ways, and it's going to heighten your senses. that's where you're really gonna learn, and it's exciting. So that's probably the most unique thing about me. And also, I don't know if it's my age or what, but I'm a risk taker, and I try to encourage my students to be that way too. Don't be afraid of failure. You
Yep.
know, don't be afraid. You know, failure is just an opportunity to learn, right?
Yep.
It's just an opportunity to learn, and it's okay. We all fail every day. That's the other thing I want them to understand too. You know, I tell my students every day you're going to have debits and credits, and don't be afraid of that. It's okay. You know, but
Yeah, that
so
makes
that's about
total
it.
sense.
Yeah.
I love that. You're so passionate when you speak about these things.
Yeah.
I love the aura.
Personality trait more than anything else. But, you know, I think what I love about our business, we can all talk to each other every day because, you know, if you spend your whole life and dedication to serving customers, and I don't care in what role, in fact, I'm going to walk away from here and have lunch at a dining facility where one of the employees has been there 43 years and he's 64 now. And, you know, we can talk the same language, you know, because that's what, and I'm just doing it in a different way, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, my career started as a busboy when I was 14. I worked my way up to grill cook. I chose a career in the hospitality industry, and then I got into academia. So my values haven't changed. It's just what I do that's different. But it's a great club to be in. I mean, the
Yeah.
customer experience community, and you know, we're really focused on customer experience management. I truly believe our degree, its framework, you know, which is much more rigorous and includes the organization and the customer, is going to be the framework and the foundation in the future for the industry globally, and that's what we're working on achieving at CXM at MSU.
Well, let's dive in. How do you apply for this degree program? How do we follow your career? How can we learn more from you?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Tom DeWitt. I'm going to come right to the top. So you put Tom DeWitt, you can put Michigan State University. I'm going to be there. Connect with me, send me a message. Happy to have a Zoom call with anybody to talk about any involvement. If you Google master's degree, customer experience management, obviously we're going to come to the top of the list as we're the first and only master's degree in customer experience management in North America. Everything you need is on the web page. We answer a lot of great questions. What does class look like? What kind of people enroll in the program? What courses do I take? How much does it cost? It's all there. You can schedule a Zoom call with a faculty member, with a student. You can be a guest in one of our online classes. We've done it all. We're an open book. Our students love our program. They love the team-based learning model, the opportunity to learn from one another. So anything your audience needs, we're here to help them. You know, that's what we're doing at CXM at MSU. Kind of like you know, making the world a better place through customer experience management.
That's what we're trying to do. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. You have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot.